Today's case is one of the eeriest and strangest we've discussed on this channel. It's a story of possible revenge, innocent lives lost, mental illness, a chilling crime spree, and it raises a chilling question. Do cold-blooded killers run in families? Just when you think this case is over, it opens up an even deeper rabbit hole. An innocent family is brutally murdered in their own home. But how does this connect to the fatal stabbing of a Pentagon officer, a crime that made national headlines? Were all three victims just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was it something far more intentional? Though 3 lives were lost, many others have been affected by the chaos brought about by the Lanz brothers, 2 men who appear to have a normal upbringing in Georgia suburbs. What are the odds that 2 brothers just years apart would both grow up to become savage killers? By now, we know that genetics can play a role in mental illness. But just because mental illness can run in families doesn't mean that everyone who suffers from it will turn into a killer. So why did this happen in one Georgia household? Could it have been an act of folie à deux, a rare psychiatric disorder where 2 or more people share similar delusions? In this case, 2 brothers. Or is it something more sinister? If there was ever a case that needed crime mapping, this is it. I'd say sit back and relax, but this case will keep you on the edge of your seat. So grab some snacks, maybe even take notes. It may get confusing with all the twists and turns. This case is so bizarre that even detectives and internet sleuths are left questioning everything. 2 brothers wreaking havoc, not just in their town, but across the nation. What happened in their seemingly normal childhood that led to 3 murders and countless others being injured? We may never have the full answer, but join us as we go behind the headlines to uncover the unsettling case of the Lanz brothers. It's hard to even know where to start with this case, but let's go ahead and get to know about the Lanz family of Acworth, Georgia. Acworth is a city in Cobb County, Georgia, and is part of the Atlanta metropolitan area. It's often referred to as the Lake City because of its proximity to Lake Allatoona and Lake Acworth. Austin and Matthew Lanz grew up with their parents, Scott and Teresa Lanz, in what could only be described as a normal subdivision of Acworth. They have 2 sisters as well. From the outside looking in, the Lanz family appeared to be the epitome of the all-American family. 2 parents, 4 kids, all living in a beautiful home in an affluent neighborhood. Seemingly, it was the perfect place to raise a family. Austin, the older brother, was 5 years older than his younger brother Matthew. The brothers and their family grew up in their childhood home on Delphinium Boulevard in Acworth. A neighbor who knew the brothers and family growing up and claimed to be their teacher described them both as smart and well-behaved growing up. So if they were well-behaved as children, when did things take a drastic turn? One thing is clear. Both boys would soon experience a steady decline in their mental health as they entered their late teens and early 20s. Mental illness that would ultimately lead to their alarming behavior. At the age of 18, Austin enlisted in the Marines in October of 2012. Less than a month later, in November of 2012, Austin was administratively separated from the Marine Corps. As a result, he technically never earned the title of Marine. According to a family attorney who spoke to CNN, Austin was discharged due to high blood pressure. Following his separation from the Marines, Austin moved back home with his parents, where he began to show signs of schizophrenia and other mental health disorders. Not much is known about Austin's life between his discharge from the Marines in 2012 and his first run-ins with the law in 2019. In the summer of 2019, Philip Brent and his fiancée Eliza Wells, both 23 years old at the time, moved into a home on Verbena Drive. The house happened to be owned by Philip's grandfather, according to tax records. It's also conveniently located just steps away from the Lanz family's residence on Delphinium Boulevard, right next door. In fact, both residences actually share a fence. At first, everything was normal and quiet. Philip and Eliza were settling into their new home and meeting neighbors. However, something seemed off about one neighbor in particular, Austin. The couple claimed that Austin would often give them strange looks or just give off unsettling vibes, but they didn't think too much of it. After all, you're not going to get along with every single neighbor, right? They figured it was just best to remain cordial and move on, nothing to worry about. At least, that's what they thought. For several months, things remained quiet and seemingly normal in the Brent household, until December of 2019. What began as an odd interaction with a neighbor soon turned much more sinister. One night in December of 2019, Philip found a folded piece of computer paper in his mailbox. Odd that it wasn't in an envelope or any stationery. When he opened it, he found a pornographic image with a message written in Sharpie. Philip couldn't quite make out what the message said, so he dismissed it at first. He assumed it was just a prank by neighborhood kids or teens who might have targeted a few houses, just kids being kids. He threw the picture away without giving it much thought. But little did he know, that photo was just the beginning of a series of strange and eerie events on his property. The couple continued to receive strange, uncomfortable images in their mailbox, off and on for several months, shrugging them off as pranks until things escalated in the summer of 2020. In May of 2020, things took a darker turn. Not only was another pornographic image left in their mailbox, but this time there was also a gift, a toy tiara placed alongside the image of a nude woman wearing a tiara. This crossed a line, prompting Philip and Eliza to call the police for the first time regarding the bizarre images. What had once felt like a prank now seemed far more sinister. Were they being watched? Why were they being targeted? What was the purpose of it all? Though the couple reached out to the authorities, the police couldn't offer much assistance as no crime had technically been committed. However, they encouraged Philip and Eliza to install surveillance and security cameras around their home, which the couple soon did. All was quiet in June. The couple had installed security cameras and likely assumed the mailbox phantom saw them do this and backed off. Little did they know they would soon find out who was behind these unsettling images. In July of that same year, Philip found an abandoned apple juice bottle with a cigarette in it, leaning against his garage door. It was enough evidence to prove that someone had clearly been on his property. He knew this could be considered trespassing. Fortunately, this time he had the proof to back it up. He could finally track down the person who had been coming onto his property, and most likely the one behind the creepy images and messages in his mailbox. Philip immediately reviewed his security camera footage and quickly recognized the culprit. And let's just say, given their previous interactions with this particular neighbor, they weren't too surprised about who was behind it. The cameras showed their neighbor, Austin Lanz, opening their mailbox in the middle of the night and leaving the juice bottle in front of their garage door, almost as if he was leaving them a gift. Or was this a threat? Well, once again, neither Philip nor Eliza were shocked to discover that Austin was the one behind these strange occurrences. They'd always thought of him as acting a little odd, but now they knew that they had to put an end to this. The couple contacted the police again and presented the evidence that Austin was, in fact, the person trespassing on their property and leaving those unsettling photos. When the local police were notified, they interviewed Austin and asked him why he was targeting the couple. Austin reportedly admitted that he had never interacted with them before, but he did admit to watching Eliza through the couple's bathroom window. That chilling admission sent shivers down the couple's spine, and they immediately made sure to keep their blinds closed from that point on. This incident also made Teresa and Scott Lanz realize the severity of their son Austin's mental health crisis. They were deeply disturbed by this behavior. Austin's parents apologized to Philip and Eliza, promising that they would ensure Austin would receive therapy and counseling. Despite this, Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that she was constantly being watched in her own home, especially when she was in the bathroom, which was visible from the Lanz house. She felt as though she could never let her guard down, and as if someone was always observing her. Philip ended up telling the Washington Post that he and Eliza did not know why Austin was so fixated on them. The following week, Eliza attempted to get a restraining order against Austin, but court officials told her there wasn't enough evidence of behavior to warrant one. Things quieted down in the Brent household after the recent incident. However, one of the following months, Philip reported that more pornographic images and other strange items continued to appear at his home. By October of 2020, Philip and Eliza had broken off their engagement, and Eliza moved out of their home. By 2021, Philip was the only one living in the house in Verbena Drive. And although things seemed to have simmered down for the time being, Austin's obsession with the Brent household was far from over. It would soon reach a boiling point. On April 18, 2021, Philip received an alert from his security camera about motion outside his front door. When we checked the footage, he saw Austin taping a large sign to the door that read, "I'm done wondering for real." What is the point of that? This prompted Philip to call the police again, resulting in Austin receiving a warning for trespassing. The police also informed Austin that he would be arrested if he ever returned to Philip's house or stepped foot on his property again. It's no surprise that Philip was shaken by this entire ordeal. To this day, no one knows why Austin continued to harass the Brent household. What we do know is that Austin was suffering from mental illness at the time, but if he was supposedly going to therapy, why did Philip and his household continue to feel under attack? What was the connection between Austin and Philip? It's also unclear whether Austin knew that Eliza had moved out. Did he have a fixation on her specifically? Unfortunately, we'll never know the answer, but Believe it or not, there's still much more to this story. Philip was so disturbed by the latest incident that he ended up staying with his sister for a while. He just needed to get out of that house. He needed to get away from Austin. Things escalated on April 24th, just a few days after Austin tried taping the sign to Philip's door. Philip received another alert from his home security system, this time showing a masked man breaking into his home with a crowbar around 4 a.m. The masked intruder is seen on the surveillance footage entering Philip's home through a back door. I think it's safe to guess who the masked assailant was. At one point, the intruder removed their mask, revealing it was in fact Austin. Are we shocked? No. What is shocking, however, is that Austin was only in Philip's home for less than 13 minutes. He turned on the lights, cracked open the blinds in the bathroom, and messed up Philip's bed, but nothing was stolen. Was he looking for someone? Was he looking for Philip or Eliza? According to arrest records, Austin didn't take anything with him. Luckily, Philip wasn't home at the time of the break-in. But what if he was? What if the goal wasn't to steal something, but to harm Philip or Eliza? At this point, enough was enough. Austin was arrested that day for trespassing and burglary. On his way to jail, Austin reportedly told police that planes were constantly flying over his neighborhood, stealing his thoughts. That should be a huge indicator where Austin's mental health state was at this time. While being booked in the Cobb County Jail, Austin allegedly attacked 2 police officers unprovoked. The officers were brutally assaulted. One officer tore his ACL and another dislocated their thumb. It took multiple officers to restrain Austin, and he reportedly told them he wanted to fight them one-on-one. As a result, Austin received 6 additional charges, including 2 counts of assaulting an officer. But he wouldn't stay in jail for long. Austin's bail was reduced to $30,000, and he was granted bail with strict conditions to undergo a mental health and substance abuse evaluation. By this point, Philip had enough. He was over Austin's antics. He didn't know why he or his home had become a target, but let's be real. He was done. Done worrying if Austin would break in again. Done living next door to someone who made him feel unsafe. I mean, imagine if your biggest source of anxiety lived right next door to you. You'd feel trapped, suffocated. I mean, I can only imagine how Philip felt. Talk about a nightmare neighbor. So it's no surprise that by the end of June 2021, Philip put his home on the market. But here's where things get interesting. Did Austin or his family know about this? Maybe it doesn't seem important now, but trust me, you're gonna ask yourself this very question later on in the video. Around the same time, Austin was granted a bond modification allowing him to move to Virginia to work for his dad. A fresh start, right? New place, new people, new neighbors. Maybe this was exactly what he needed for his mental health. But that hope? Yeah, it wasn't gonna last long. Austin moved to Virginia in early August 2021, and just days after his arrival, he would unleash chaos that would make national headlines and shake national security to its core. Fast forward to the morning of August 3rd, 2021, right outside the nation's capital, it started like any other day. People heading to work, business as usual. It was also just another day for 37-year-old Pentagon Force Protection Agency officer George Gonzalez. Originally from Brooklyn, New York, George was an Army veteran who served in Iraq, earning an Army Commendation Medal for his service. After his military career, he worked for the Federal Bureau of Prisons and the Transportation Security Administration before joining the Pentagon Force in 2018. He quickly climbed the ranks, earning 2 promotions and becoming a senior officer by 2020. George was known as a dedicated officer, a well-liked colleague, and a die-hard Yankees fan. But on that fateful day, his path would cross with Austin's, leading to a tragedy that no one saw coming. It's still a mystery why Austin took a bus to the Pentagon that day. He had just moved to Virginia to work with his father, so did his father even know he had gone there? What business did he have at the Pentagon? Why was he in that area at all? No one could have predicted that his actions that morning would set off a chain of destruction. Just after 10:30 a.m., Austin stepped off a Metro bus at the Pentagon Transit Center in Arlington, Virginia. Without warning or apparent motive, he launched a brutal attack on Officer George Gonzalez, fatally stabbing him before taking his gun and shooting him. Moments later, Austin turned the gun on himself, ending his own life.
This morning at about 10:37 a.m., a Pentagon police officer was attacked on the Metro bus platform. Gunfire was exchanged, and there were several casualties. The incident is over, the scene is secure, and most importantly, there's no continuing threat to our community. The FBI is on scene, leading the investigation, and again, the Pentagon and the Pentagon Reservation are safe and secure. The Pentagon Metro station is probably one of the busiest in the transportation system. It is a hub for commuters as well as building occupants. There are a number of measures that we have in place out there. Every time an incident occurs, whether it's here or anywhere else across the nation or in the world, we do after actions on those, we examine them, we look for things that we can do to improve. But right now, again, it's still pending. We will certainly, as this investigation concludes, take another look at any measures. Our mission is to protect not just the building, but the community that we serve that transits through that station.
Somehow, a bystander was also injured during the chaos, though they were quickly taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and later made a full recovery. To this day, it remains unclear whether Austin ever completed his court-ordered psychological evaluation. At the time of the attack, he was still within the 30-day window to undergo the assessment. Some sources claim he never did, while others suggest he did, but if so, no official diagnosis of his condition or mental state has ever been confirmed. To this day, no clear motive has been uncovered for why Austin attacked George or even went to the Pentagon Transit Center. Some believe his separation from the Marine Corps fueled resentment towards law enforcement and the military, and when combined with his escalating mental health struggles, it became a recipe for disaster. U.S. authorities concluded that Austin acted alone, possibly seeking revenge against national security on a broader scale. However, his crime has never been officially classified as an act of terrorism. But one thing is clear, you can see the escalation and rapid decline of Austin's mental well-being from his first run-ins with the law back in 2019 to the day of that horrific murder. After this incident, Austin's parents released this statement regarding their son. "We are devastated by the loss of our son, Austin, and of Officer George Gonzalez. We want Officer Gonzalez's family and friends to know that we are so sorry and heartbroken for them. We will forever be thankful for his service and dedication to the safety and well-being of our country." The last few months of Austin's life were overcome with many mental health challenges. Unfortunately, despite the time spent in the criminal justice system with their special requirements, his hospital stays and numerous professional mental health evaluations, Austin did not receive any official diagnosis. Therefore, he was unable to sufficiently deal with his mental health nor get the help he so desperately needed. While we sit in disbelief over the events that occurred and continue to mourn for lives lost, we are hopeful that this tragedy can help bring greater awareness and change to the growing mental health crisis in our country. Our family would greatly appreciate privacy during the most difficult time as we continue to grieve. Now, I know what you're thinking. This video is about the Lanz brothers, so where does Austin's brother, Matthew Lanz, fit into all of this? Well, here's his story. As I mentioned earlier, Matt is a few years younger than Austin. According to his LinkedIn profile, he attended Kennesaw Mountain High School in Cobb County from 2014 to 2018, where he was part of the school's STEM magnet program. He was also involved in extracurriculars, playing on both the JV and varsity lacrosse teams and participating in clubs like Habitat for Humanity, Healthcare Occupations of America, and table tennis. On top of that, he even worked as an assistant coach for a youth lacrosse league. By all accounts, Matt seemed like an engaged student who cared about his community. His resume states that he graduated from the magnet program with a 4.3 GPA, ranking at the top of his class. In 2018, he enrolled at the University of Georgia to study cognitive science, but he never completed his degree. Classmates claim he was a member of a fraternity and lived in the fraternity house at some point, but allegedly had to leave UGA due to mental health concerns, though this has never been officially confirmed. Someone who claimed to know Matt even described him on Reddit as sweet and smart. But somewhere along the way, something changed. That bright-eyed student with a promising future would later be responsible for brutally attacking a police officer and murdering two strangers in November of 2021. But first, let's just rewind to August 2021, just days after Austin fatally attacked George Gonzalez and took his own life. A new family moved in next door to the Lanz residence. Remember when Philip put his home on Virginia Drive up for sale that summer? Well, by the end of August, it had new owners, Justin and Amber Hicks, both 31 at the time. They were excited to start fresh in their new home, joined by their 2-year-old son, Jacob, and their family dog. Justin was a Cherokee County firefighter and Amber worked as an audiology assistant. The couple had been childhood sweethearts, growing up just down the road from each other. Their friendship blossomed into young love, and by the time they were 12, Justin already knew he wanted to marry Amber. Their bond was rare, pure, unwavering, and only strengthened when they welcomed their son in 2019. Both had a heart for service, dedicated to helping others in their careers and personal lives. What should have been the start of a beautiful new chapter quickly turned into an unthinkable tragedy, one that cut their lives short in a senseless and cold-blooded act of murder. The morning of November 18th started off unusually. The Hicks 2-year-old was not dropped off at daycare, which immediately raised concern. Local police were called for a welfare check, and what they discovered at the home on Virginia Drive would not only shock the neighborhood, but make national headlines due to a string of bizarre and violent attacks. Inside their home, Justin and Amber Hicks were found dead from fatal gunshot wounds. Investigators believe the shooter meticulously collected all the shell casings before fleeing. Based on the scene, it was clear the couple had been murdered overnight, and detectives wasted no time launching a homicide investigation. But the biggest question remained: who would want them dead? Justin and Amber were well-liked public servants, known for their kind hearts and friendly nature. They seemed to have no enemies. Why would someone want to harm them? And worse, why would someone leave their 2-year-old son alone in the house for hours while his parents lay dead? Miraculously, the child and the family dog were left unharmed, but the trauma of that night would be lifelong. With the murderers still on the loose, fear gripped the neighborhood. Was this a targeted attack, a burglary gone wrong? As the community demanded answers, investigators raced to uncover the truth. Less than 24 hours after the brutal slaying of Justin and Amber Hicks, police were called to a home in Sandy Springs, a suburb of Atlanta, about 20 miles from the Hicks residence in Chestnut Hill. Multiple residents had reported home break-ins that night, flooding police lines with calls. Responding to a suspicious person report in the Cameron Glen neighborhood off Herds Ferry Road, Sandy Springs officers arrived to find an unknown intruder inside the home. That intruder? 22-year-old Matthew Lanz, the brother of Austin Lanz. When officers entered the Sandy Springs residence, Matt stood at the top of the stairs, facing them. Surveillance footage captured officers calmly pleading with him, urging him to come down and leave the home graciously. But after a few tense minutes, Matt suddenly descended the stairs, lunging at an officer. Dressed in full body armor and tactical gear, Matt viciously stabbed one of the officers multiple times in the back and neck. Why was he wearing this tactical gear? What was his plan? As the brutal attack unfolded, officers fired weapons, striking and wounding Matt. And here is the body cam footage from that incident. But beware, the footage may be disturbing for some.
Hey, come on down, man. Come on down. Go!
Yeah. Come on. Come on.
Fortunately, the injured officer survived. He was rushed to Grady Health Hospital and was able to recover from his wounds. Matt, too, was hospitalized for his injuries, but once stable, he was taken into custody and booked in the Fulton County Jail. But the bigger question remains: why did Matt break into this home? And more importantly, how does this connect to the brutal slayings of Justin and Amber Hicks just days earlier? Matt Lanz was charged with 35 felony counts related to the break-in, an officer-involved stabbing in Sandy Springs. These included 10 counts each of attempted murder of a police officer, aggravated assault on a police officer, and felony obstruction, along with burglary, home invasion, and multiple weapons charges. Days later, police officially linked Matt to the brutal murders of Justin and Amber Hicks. Cobb County investigators announced they had secured warrants for his arrest after a key piece of evidence surfaced. Shell casings from the Hicks crime scene matched bullets belonging to Matt. A source close to the Hicks family claimed on social media that Matt had allegedly confessed to being in their backyard the night of the murders. In court, detectives also said cell phone data showed that Matt left his college apartment in Athens, Georgia at 8 p.m. on the night of November 17th. Then that same cell phone data pinpoints Matt on the scene of the crime in the Ackworth neighborhood around 9 p.m. that night. But he wasn't visiting his parents' home next door. The data shows him at the Hicks residence. Then he allegedly drove back to his apartment following the murders. Matt was then charged with 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, home invasion, firearm possession during a felony, tampering with evidence, and child cruelty. The latter charge stemmed from leaving Hicks's 2-year-old son alone for nearly 12 hours without food or care, causing the child to have extreme physical and emotional distress. On February 17, 2022, the Cobb County Superior Court indicted Matt Lanz on 13 counts, including 6 different murder charges, firearm possession, and child cruelty. In court, detectives revealed that Matt's parents drove to his apartment in Athens and confronted him about his possible involvement in the murder of Justin and Amber Hicks. Matt allegedly denied any knowledge of the crime, but his parents noticed a pistol just feet away from him. later identified as the weapon used in the brutal slayings. They took the pistol home with them that day, but left the ammunition at Matt's apartment. To this day, Matt has remained behind bars following his arrest in the brutal slaying. To this day, not much is known about why Matt attacked the Hicks family or why he broke into the Sandy Springs home. Many online speculation suggests that Matt may have been trying to aid his brother's death by retaliating against the couple whom he believed had been terrorizing Austin, but it turned out to be a completely different couple altogether. It's also unclear whether Matt knew the previous homeowners of Virginia Drive had moved out, or if he was aware that the Hicks had only lived there for a few months before their tragic deaths.
It appears to be, from what we're being told, and we're not being told a lot yet, maybe a case of mistaken identity, that he broke in looking for the previous owners to pay retribution, and my cousins were there, just wrong place, wrong time.
It was a thing with the neighbor behind the house was terrorizing them. So it's just a lot going around this house, and I feel so terrible that it got to this extent for this couple who just moved here and they were so excited to be homeowners and start their lives together.
Was Matt attempting to finish the job his brother started by killing the neighbors, or did he simply snap due to his own mental health struggles? One thing is certain. At least 3 people lost their lives and many others were severely affected by the reign of terror the Lanz brothers caused. There are still so many unanswered questions in this case. How come no friends or family of the Lanz brothers come forward to speak about them? What could drive seemingly normal young men with bright futures to turn into cold-blooded killers? As of now, it's unclear whether Matt will face trial. If he does, we may finally get some answers to this complex web of crime.
It will be like reliving it over and over and over. And being that it was such a heinous crime, I believe it's probably going to be devastating. Look him in the face, see justice served, and ultimately forgive him.
Unfortunately, we may never fully understand the details behind this tragic story and may never get the answers to the countless lives affected and lost at the hands of the Lanz brothers. So what do you make of this bizarre case? It's clear that Austin Lanz struggled immensely with his mental health, but what about his brother, Matt? Did Matt also battle the same inner demons, or did his struggles take a different shape? One thing is certain, whether through genetics or a shared upbringing, the Lanz brothers were undeniably troubled. But just because someone experiences mental health issues doesn't automatically mean they will turn into cold-blooded killers. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health Illness, around 23% of American adults, about 58 million people, experienced mental health struggles in 2021, yet not every person who faces mental illness becomes violent. So what are the odds that 2 brothers from the same family would both end up committing such heinous crimes? We don't know much about the Lanz brothers' upbringing, but if social media has taught us anything, it's that what's visible on the surface isn't always the full story. But what do you think about all of this? Is it a tragic case of folie à deux where 2 minds sink in madness? Or is there something far more sinister at play? Is it a product of mental illness gone unchecked? Or is there something darker we're not seeing? It leaves you asking, could one simple act of intervention have prevented a tragic chain of events? Would the Hicks family, George Gonzalez, and even Austin still be here if mental health struggles had been addressed in time? All of the what-ifs will linger for quite a while after the tragedy, reminding us of the importance of seeking help before it's too late. We clearly have a mental health crisis in this country, and it's vital that us as a society, we take collective action to protect the individuals who suffer and to safeguard the communities they live in. But until we get the full picture, this story remains filled with questions, and it's one that lingers in the shadows. What could have driven these 2 young men to such extremes? The answers, or lack thereof, may never fully satisfy us, but they should spark a larger conversation, one that we can't afford to ignore any longer. This has been Joshua John with Behind the Headlines, and until next time, stay safe.